It's time for another episode of
Perfect Plot Recap.
This time it's for a game you've probably never heard of. Dead of Boy. God of War. This is a father-son adventure game that the whole family can enjoy. Yeesh, is that what the M on the front of the box means? Well, I mean, at least there's not, like, underage drinking in it.
Is it still good?
Possibly.
Nice game. Nice. Anyways, let's get started by talking about the story.
What's the story?
Bark! The first thing you do in this game is chop down a tree. Really exciting stuff there, Balrog. But quickly the game ramps up the pace by, wait for it, becoming a
Canoeing simulator.
Once you dock, something happens. What was it again?
You are free.
Now that that's all over, you immediately go hunting for food and quickly discover that Atreus is the absolute worst.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
After that pathetic display of hunting, you stomp back home and are just about to turn on your PS4 to play some games and relax when there's a knock on your door. The good news is that it's probably the DoorDash you ordered when the hunting didn't go as planned. Unfortunately, Kratos doesn't tip him well, so all he delivers is a knuckle sandwich. Anywho, you fight him and you fight him and you fight him and you fight him, and it turns out Kratos can heal his wounds away Call of Duty style during cutscenes in this game. I have to farm Niflheim for hours just to get passive health regen, but okay. Since DoorDash didn't work out and Uber Eats isn't in this area, he grabs Atreus and his wife's ashes to go get some grub somewhere else. You meet Sultry Smurf on the way and he recognizes and upgrades your axe for you, which you begrudgingly accept. After this, you walk into a trap and Atreus is forced to stab a man in the throat to stay alive. Kratos takes this time to give perfect fatherly advice here. Take your feelings and shove them deep down inside of you and never deal with them. Solid advice we all should strive to follow to this day. Just after this, you find yourself at the top of a mountain and notice that the tree we chopped down at the beginning of the game was one part of a force field spell that the mother had cast, and by cutting it down, as per her wishes, allowed all manner of evil and wrath to descend upon Kratos and Boy without its protection.
What a legend.
Honestly, I can see why Kratos liked her, and you can tell she knew him well because she was 100% aware he wouldn't take the boy without a little push in the right direction. We soon hunt a boar for funsies, which turns out to be Pumbaa from The Lion King. I mean, the spirit of the forest, and we attempt to murder him, which ticks off a random forest witch who can't possibly be that important to the plot, right? She lives in an adamant tortoise.
Best house ever.
And makes us go out and complete probably the hardest task in video game history.
Gathering ingredients.
Like 5 feet away.
This might be a good spot
to find some ingredients?
While completing this impossible task, you give Artemis Fowl his knife back that he dropped irresponsibly while frantically chasing the boar because he's the absolute worst, and the pretty lady stops the boar from dying. Torterra House lowers down and puts you into the Lake of 69, so you proceed towards the mountain. You meet Sindri, who is brother to Sultry Smurf, and he upgrades your axe some more. You trudge up the mountain and get to some black smoke that a statue is shooting from his nose. Must have taken a huge hit from his face. And the witch pops up and tells you that in this realm, smoking actually kills people. So you cruise back down the mountain with the Turtle House lady, and she takes you to Tyr's temple to teleport you to Alfheim. You shove the Bifrost aggressively into the realm transport and get to experience the prettiest looking loading gate in video game history. Once in Alfheim, Witch Lady gets slurped away and you hustle on your way to grab the Light of Alfheim. As you get deeper in, you pass by a bunch of dark elves impaling light elves, which doesn't bother you one bit. You're just here to jack these elves' most prized possession and peace out. On the way, we fight Garignac, which the game helpfully instructs us to attack his vulnerable spots.
The rocket doesn't have any vulnerable spots!
Take that, Tim Allen. Eventually, we get to the Light of Milfheim after defeating a bunch of dark elves and thousands of snot ropes, and Kratos proceeds to shove his hand deep up in the giant white skybeam. At this point, you start tripping balls and having flashbacks of Atreus whining about our parenting ability, and then you're just about to see your wife again when Atreus yanks you back out. We awaken to a scene from the Fellowship of the Ring where there are hundreds and hundreds of dead Uruk-hai, but instead of a dying Sean Bean, we just have Atreus. Boy gets really mad at you because he's
The absolute worst.
and is grumpy but still smart enough to not try and catch these hands. The Pantheon could learn a thing or two. So you yell at the snot-nosed punk a little bit and head back to Midgar. You saunter back up the mountain again, but are able to push through the snot smoke this time and take an elevator up, eventually
Getting attacked by a flippin' dragon.
Eitri the dwarf is gonna get exploded, so you step in and help him by shanking said alpha dragon in the temple and exploding his neck hole. OCD Dwarf rewards you by giving you Green Arrow on DVD, green arrows for Atreus' bow. You continue your trudge up the mountain, but on the way you have to fix Boy's arrow holder thingy up with a green arrow, which definitely isn't going to be important later on.
Good?
Good.
You climb up to the top of the mountain and overhear Boulder, Thor Baby 1, and Thor Baby 2 yelling at a tree. They peace out and you talk to the goat tree man they were chatting with. He tells you that this mountain isn't the one you're looking for, and as thanks for that, you chop off his head.
I'm going to cut off your head now.
Fair enough.
You take the head back to the witch lady and make her bring it back to life. Old Goaty Boy tells us this lady is actually Freya, a goddess, which makes us hate her immediately and want to murder her. Somehow we exercise restraint for the first time ever in any video game, and move on, taking the head with us. Scully McGoatbrain tells us to talk to the giant Nope monster and ask him for some way to get to Jotunheim, which is the mountain that we're searching for, and he tells us to do some fetch quests to pad the runtime a little bit. On the way, you eviscerate one of Thor's kiddos, and the other one whines because now he gets to inherit Mjolnir, the coolest weapon ever, instead of his bro. And this is a bad thing, I guess? You're ambushed by the same whiny butt from earlier, and Atreus decides to randomly die during the ambush because he's
The absolute worst.
So you take him back to the witch to bring back to life. She tells you to go to hell. Literally. Norse hell, okay? Norse hell has one L, so YouTube don't demonetize this. Anywho, hell has frozen over, which means that your ice attacks won't be very effective. So you remember that this is an unnumbered sequel to the old games, and go grab your spoilers of spoil times from the his house. Didn't these used to be cursed to your forearms, which is how they achieved the yo-yo effect? Whatever, it's still awesome. Once you grab those, you loading gate over to Iceland and murder some guy just doing his job and rip out his heart so your kid will live. Wait, isn't that the plot to John Q? You take the heart to Witch Lady and the withering husk of your child, and she brings Boy back to life. At this point, you have to tell Atreus that he's a god because that somehow cures his sickness. This turns him from the worst child ever into the worst teenager ever.
But Odin's ways are subtle and his purposes are...
enough about Odin and his whole stupid family.
Which, as a teacher who works with middle school students, I can attest that those punks make death row inmates seem like Care Bears.
We can do whatever we want.
Just kidding, love you students. Kratos not backhanding this kid every time he opens his mouth is honestly the most magical and unexplainable thing to happen in this game.
Yeah! We're sick of hearing about little people's little problems!
All right. That hurt a little.
Anywho, you grab a bunch of stuff and you head back up the mountain just to be ambushed again. This time it's by a skeleton with the worst haircut in the world, and Kratos decides smashing him into the Stargate over and over and over again is a solid strategy to beat a god that can't feel pain or die. Instead of, I don't know, yeeting him off the mountain? Ah well. You somehow find yourself back in hell with one L again, and Atreus gets to watch the last couple cutscenes in the game, so he starts to figure out what we've known all along, that he's the absolute worst.
Alright, say it. I told you so.
I told you so.
You also learn that the only two human characters you've met are actually related and are super important to the plot. Gasp! That's crazy, right? You make an airship to fly out of there, and Kratos starts tripping balls again and sees Zeus, who reminds him that he's his dad and wasn't too happy about being murdered in the old games. Atreus and Goat Bro see this, but wisely pretend that they didn't. We're one step from the end now, so we gather all of our MacGuffins, and we do all the side quests in the entire game. We summon the World Snake again with the first lungless trumpet ever invented, and he agrees to eat us so we can find an eyeball.
Perfectly not confusing.
But then Bladder punches El Snako in the face, so he vomits you next to the dead giant you gathered a rock from earlier. Balder punching the world snake in the face is cool with you, but then he says mean things to his mom, so you fight him. Freya says no, and summons the devil's snare to hold you back, but that doesn't really work at all, so you two wail on each other until he punches Atreus in the hastily repaired quiver strap and turns mortal. Freya's like, well, crap, so she resurrects the giant from the dead and tries to use him to separate you two young whippersnappers. This, again, doesn't work, so you continue fighting near the giant, below the giant, between the giant, and even on the giant, with a lot of assist from Atreus, who maybe isn't the worst in the world now. And we weaken Balder till he's not a threat anymore. We tell him to bugger off, but instead of just doing that and getting wasted, eating apples, and doing other stuff in the meantime until we're not around anymore, he decides to murder his mamo. We completely solved his greatest issue for him, but nope, he goes straight for the larynx. So Kratos snaps his neck and ironically leaves him next to the only person we know of in this game that can bring people back to life. She doesn't seem to remember this though, and gets really mad at us and promises to destroy us in the sequel, so we have that to look forward to.
I will destroy you!
Woo! We get in our canoe and peace out back to the temple. Now we laser blast our skull friend and open up the path to Johannesburg, and we walk through the pearly gates. Moving deeper in, we take off our arm bandages, cause character development, and hand Atreus his mother's ashes, which is a pretty big moment even though we're 10 steps away from the end of the game, but still. We soon find some drawings on the wall depicting our entire journey, even though they were carved in advance. Ooh. But one picture is covered up a bit and isn't depicting the past, it's depicting the future. Ooh. It shows a dying Kratos shooting snakes out of his mouth and into Atreus' mouth, and I am not okay with that sentence in any way. And then Kratos and Atreus spread the ashes of the one they hold dearest, and for the first time in his life, Kratos places his hand on Atreus' back and calls him son. Because Atreus, or should I say Loki, is the absolute best.
Goodbye, Faye.
I love you, Mom. The giants. They really are all gone.
Then out of nowhere, there's an end credit sequence where Thor comes to murder them. Ah!